Hi, I'm Lucy Hawkins and I'm one of the Careers Advisors here at the University of Oxford. This is our talk on using social media for self-marketing and job research. As you can see, there's a wealth of different social media tools available, but just because they're available doesn't necessarily mean that you should use them. And with more being added every year, I think it's important to take a step back before we start and think about exactly how they could be relevant. So you can see on the left-hand side symbols for various social media tools. The first row is blogging software, WordPress, Blogspot. Then there's also Twitter, Facebook, social networks, YouTube, and also related video content sites like Vimeo, and things like professional social networks like LinkedIn. That might be a very quick way to define some of the social media, but how could they be useful? I'm going to start putting up now, alongside each one of them, some of the skills that can be demonstrated by using these different tools. And if you've got an interview coming up in the short term and you're looking at a list of selection criteria against that job, then you can hopefully get a sense of which might match with which social media tools. For example, if you're going with a job which involves a lot of writing, or particularly writing for the web, then a blog might be the most appropriate thing to pursue. If you're going for something in digital video production, on the other hand, then YouTube is obviously the site for you. We're going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail to help you understand a little bit more about how you could use each one of those, both for research and for self-marketing. So, blogs. WordPress, Blogspot, Blogger, they're just a few of the tools that are out there. I think blogs can be really useful, particularly to showcase written style, maybe showcase interest in an area that you've not worked in, pulling together your research and your wider reading into one kind of evidence base. So if you do decide to start your own blog, make sure you come up with a single and defined reason to be posting. This can help your readers decide whether or not you're worth following and kind of find out what to expect, and it can help create a consistent brand, and we'll come back to that throughout the presentation. Write for your online audience, keep sentences short where you can, use video, use pictures. Promote your blog, so you can use some of the other social media tools to promote it that we're going to talk about today, as well as things like adding it to your email footer, putting it on your CV, and physically telling people about it. Following other blogs can also be a good way of raising attention for your own, also commenting. So collaborate and share, and this means that your content doesn't just have to come from you. You can happily put a blog post up there that praises somebody else that's blogging and has done interesting research. So be a networker and be a collaborator. For job research, you can just read blogs without having to have a blog account yourself. So the first thing to do is to find organisations and individuals that are relevant to your sector and that are blogging. And often these are actually cited on the organisation's website. Read about what they say, pick up industry language and also big topics that are emerging in that industry. And again, talk about it, mention it at interview, talk about it in a cover letter. And I think it can be really effective. So Twitter. I'm a self-confessed Twitter addict, so I have to dial down the enthusiasm slightly on this point. But Twitter's got much of the same benefits as blogging, but it's just much shorter. So we call it micro-blogging, and it's exactly the same principle, but just in 140 characters. And a nice message comes up if you go over 140 characters telling you have to be more clever, which I quite enjoy. So for self-marketing, same applies. Create a nice, consistent reason to be posting and write that in the profile text that goes with your account. Keep the image or the avatar consistent between more than one social media tool that you're using. So if you have a blog as well as a Twitter account, make sure your Twitter is cited on your blog and the same avatar, the same logo runs throughout. Tweet useful and unique information, add to the discussion, crucially, and raise awareness of your own Twitter account by following other people, retweeting things that they say that are interesting, and also you can send them messages, and these are called replies, and they start with @whoever, so @BBC College would go to the BBC College of Journalism, and you can ask questions or comment on things that they've done. So be nice and visible. To use it for job research, actually you don't need an account at all. So if you go to twitter.com/Oxford Careers, you can see all the things we tweet about without having to log in at all. However, if you're going to start reading Twitter for job research, it's worthwhile making yourself visible. So set up an account, even if you're not intending to post things yourself, and make sure that your profile text says something about you and that your image is consistent with other things you might be using. And this means that if you follow a company's Twitter feed or an individual's Twitter feed or even your interviewer's Twitter feed, they can see exactly that it's you, and it showcases the depth of your research. You can also, once you've got an account, you can send questions. So if you read something that's interesting but you're not quite sure how to use the piece of information, you can send them a message directly, and this can really help take your research to a next level. So video media then, and YouTube is just one example, or possibly the largest of this. Things like Vimeo and others exist too. And video can be fantastic if you've got some video content and you want to bring it together in one place, share it, and maybe go into some detail about your skills in this area. So for self-marketing, I think you do need to create your own channel, and you can see we've created the Oxford Careers Service YouTube channel, and do feel free to have a look at that too. This is useful because it brings together all your work into a place where you control the content. So rather than just citing the YouTube link to maybe the college drama group that has a YouTube channel which has got a video advert you were involved in making, that's perfectly acceptable and it's an excellent stopgap. But what happens if the person who takes over that college drama group decides to edit the description of that piece of video and takes out everyone who was involved with it other than the director, which maybe wasn't you? That means that your involvement is now quite invisible. Similarly, they might take down the video, decide it's too old, they're going to update content, and then of course your link doesn't work, and that's a worry too. So where you can, get a copy of videos you've been involved in producing, put them on your own channel, and use the descriptive text to talk about exactly what you were responsible for. Watch Graham Anthony's Curriculum Vitae interactive video, I think that's his term, CVIV. This is on YouTube, and I must be honest, can be quite intimidating. So the first thing to do is to read the description underneath. Graham had help in creating this, and he's also a more experienced professional. But if you're looking for some inspiration into how you could use video in a more effective way for self-marketing, there's no better place to start. It's a series of linked clips, and I recommend clicking on his skills link to see a little bit more about how he's used video too. So for job research, the first thing to do is to find the employer channel on YouTube, or, as I say, an equivalent piece of kit. Leave some comments, like what they do, and do it having signed into YouTube with an account that's work appropriate. And again, making sure this brand is consistent across things that you do. I think that's a really, really easy way of just seeing some of the content that they're doing, and you can mention it at interview, and it looks quite impressive. So LinkedIn, if you take nothing else away from this talk, LinkedIn, I'd say, is the most important piece of social media for job seekers and career changers. So for self-marketing, it basically gives you a place with fantastic search engine optimization to put your CV. This means if someone searches for your first name, your surname, and then maybe things like your former employer or your university, they start to see, generally within the top 5 hits, a page that has all the detail that you would like them to be reading. You can also have recommendations, which is where you actually ask people that you've previously worked with to comment publicly on how wonderful you are. And this sits on your LinkedIn page as like an addition to your CV, which in the age where we take up references later and later is fantastically helpful. You can link and embed things, so if you have other social media like Twitter, then you can pop it on your LinkedIn page, and you can also showcase videos too. You can join groups and networks, and if you're moving into a new industry and you're not too familiar with it professionally, you can join a professional group, get some information, and also showcase on your LinkedIn page that you're a member of that group, and that can start to add some credibility to someone moving into a brand new sector. It's also fantastic for keeping track of people that you've worked with in the past, so you add contacts, and all of those are linked to your profile, and then you have the right to contact anyone who's 1 degree away from those contacts. That's your network. And so you can actually find out that you might have contacts working in the industry you'd like to move into that are just 1 degree away from somebody that you know. And LinkedIn can help you find that out and send them a message and start to kind of get a conversation going, which can be really helpful. For job research, I think it is about using LinkedIn as a search tool as well as just a page to put content. So use the search bar at the top. You can search for individuals, for companies, and you can filter geographically and by lots of other criteria too. And as I say, join groups, network, and talk to people. If you're finding LinkedIn absolutely baffling, then on the top bar there's a little tab called More, and within that there's Learning Centre. and they've got user guides for both job seekers and for students too that might be really helpful. So if you've got some accounts, and these are some examples, that might not be solely professional, perhaps you use them occasionally for more social content as well, then it is sometimes quite tricky to use them just for a professional reason. For things like Facebook and Google+, obviously you can manage what's publicly visible, and certainly even what's visible to some of your followers or friends. So make sure that you're using those tools quite carefully. If you're adding work friends on Facebook, for example, you can now set that as a category, so when you post, the posts just are visible to your close friends, for example. It's still quite tricky to use tools that are for more than one media, in my opinion, just because things like a consistent brand identity for you as an individual professional are quite hard to maintain. Sometimes you might not want to have your kind of work-appropriate image associated with your Facebook profile, and sometimes it's useful to separate the two. So for things like Skype and for Google+, just make sure that those profiles attached to those are managed for this sense. So if you're using Google Email, for example, make sure that if they look at your Google profile, the About Me text is complete, the image is consistent, etc. For Skype, and I've seen this used more than once for a telephone interview, and someone's actually find out that they're using the Skype account that they used 4 years ago to talk to friends and families while they were at university, and actually the profile picture is wildly work inappropriate. So absolutely make sure that you manage that profile, manage your username on those kind of services, and if you need to, set up a new one that you can use solely for work. So things to remember then. If you do decide to use this for self-marketing, any of these tools, make sure you develop them before you start showcasing them on CVs or to a potential employer. There's nothing worse than shouting loudly about how great you are on blogging or on Twitter, and actually you've only posted once and it was 4 years ago. So make sure they look like how you'd like them to look before you start using them as a real selling point for you. Always take that step back that we talked about at the start and consider how it's relevant, so that you don't spend lots and lots of time creating video content, for example, when actually the job you're going for has got nothing to do with that whatsoever. So showcase them on LinkedIn and on your CV, and you can use these little kind of buttons that are at the top right of this slide and related things to showcase that too. And also, if you are creating, make sure you're remaining a reader so that you adapt when the language of that tool adapts. So for example, on Twitter, things like Follow Friday and using hashtags, short forms and abbreviations, you need to be able to read those things as well as just put up content, so that you start to adapt the language that you use. For job research, talk about what you're doing. Don't hide your light under a bushel. So in your cover letter and in the interview, talk about the research that you've done through social media. It's really, really effective. And rather than just say, I've read your account on Twitter, try and go a little bit further and talk about how that's helped you decide to apply for this job, how that's changed your view of the company, or maybe how that's helped you come up with an idea that's something that you can contribute once you're in post. So we've got lots more help online too. We've got lots of stuff on CVs and another talk on YouTube actually about CVs as well, and you can use that bit.ly link to find that. If you're an Oxford student or alumnus, then you can use us for careers advice for life. So make sure that you find out how to see a careers advisor using that link if you need to. And we've also got lots of advice that's sector specific, so just for different industries. And you can use that link below. Go to students and their occupations, and you can see our sector guides. So as you can see, we're on Twitter and Facebook. So let us know what you think about this presentation. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much.